record. Okay, I didn't want to forget this again. I forgot last time. Okay. All right, so we went over the part 1 for preliminary matters, and David presented a lot of his work for part 1, and I believe all of us have agreed to adopting his wording.
I have a suggested addition.
Okay.
Let me see, I had added it in somewhere. It's just basically the very first line of, I should already have this open. The very first line of the vision statement, which identifies Missanabie Cree as Mushkegowuk. Just, I forget the exact wording, but hang on.
The vision statement? We are the Mushkego of the Missanabie Cree, Illiwak?
Yes.
Illiwak?
Yes. And so I think that would be a good addition to have in the preamble. So as the very first thing, whereas Missanabie Cree are people of the Mushkego of Missanabie Cree Illiwak, whose vision it is to have a united and self-governing body, and that will determine our destiny guided by the 7 grandfather teachings.
Okay. Can I put a pin in this for a moment?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to get into the actual revision or like blend code itself.
Yeah, you know what I'll do is I meant to do this already. I'll upload like suggested changes onto that Google Docs, and people can then see, hopefully see with the suggestions that I'm making, but I can do that after.
Okay. Okay, so this kind of goes, actually, it's a good segue into this comment, which was creating a web page or digital space for membership, but also for us. To be able to check out our current work and what we've done so far, and to add input from the membership itself. So we don't have anything yet in place for an open shared space for the membership yet, but we were able to create this Google document that all of us can edit at the same time. Who has been able to access this? So I know David has. Tess, Pam, were you able to, I sent an email out a couple weeks ago about this. So I'll be showing you in a moment. I'll be sharing that with us. Okay, so basically the Google document is the land code, or the draft land code that we are all creating right now. We will all be able to access this at any time. What I'm asking is anyone who does any editing on it, please change the color of the font that you're using so that we all know who edited what part. I chose purple. I like purple. If you like another color, then by all means. We just want to
color so that we know who is doing what.
Yeah, like we could all just change it over to black later on, but it's nice to have a way of being able to track who changes what, because unfortunately Google Docs doesn't track everything as it goes. It's just like the last edit is shown. Okay. So we also talked about everyone's, I guess, level of understanding and skills, expertise. Skip over that. And then we'll get to last week and this week's work. So last time we were here, we split up the part 2 into different sections, and everyone took on a different section. Unfortunately, Carol is no longer with the committee, so I took on her section, which was enforcement of land laws. April and I were unable to get a hold of each other due to some, well, the shutdown of the office. So I went over the edits between all of these different sections, which was 2 to 5. And I didn't really change much except adding Missanabie Cree where it wasn't added in or just left as is. So I'm going to open up the land code. 1 sec. Okay, can everyone see the land code here?
Just to go back to what Tess was saying, I think maybe the very first section of the preamble, like right after, like, whereas Missanabie Cree a recognized band, like take that out and put that, what Tess had suggested, instead of that, because I think that reads a little bit better than just.
Okay, so this section right here.
Yeah, you can change that to the vision statement bit that Tess had suggested earlier.
I like the second one though. I like this, well, your first bullet. I think I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because it connects us to Dog Lake.
Okay. So either put it before or after then, I guess.
Yeah, I just thought, yeah, I thought it would flow nicer after, but it would matter.
Okay.
So you think after, Tess?
Yeah, I think just making the first bullet now the second would be good.
Okay. So. Okay, I'll just add that as a note and add that in later.
The fifth whereas I think might need some legal advice on.
Yeah, we'll be getting to that part after. We're kind of just capturing the spirit of what this group believes that would be best for Missanabie Cree. As for the actual wording and whatnot, we'll have to go back over that after the fact and just make sure that all the wording is correct. But
yeah, we've
capturing
had
the spirit is kind of the important part right now.
Yeah, we've had, and legal has reached out to the department. I don't know if Chief got sort of a, I have no idea how it came to be, whether it was driven by the resource center getting legal for Missanabie Cree, because legal has to review it, or if it was through Chief and Council that they reached out. I was trying to get to the bottom of why a person reached out to me recently saying, hey, all things land code, we're here to help you. I said, well, to what degree? I think that they are that person, but I haven't heard back from them yet.
Oh yeah. Who was that?
I think you were CC'd because I think you supplied all the information to them. It was Amber that supplied all the information to them. It's just in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, it wasn't you. It was Amber. It was the band admin.
Okay.
And so I said, like, who are you? How are you helping us? And I suspect they are going to be the ones to legally review it. So, like, for example, that bullet that says recognizes first and foremost that the resettlement initiatives must be driven by people. That one, or is it the other? Yeah, I think that one. So that there's in no way to be an impediment to any member choosing. That one right there might be binding the situation, so that there should be, that no member could be impeded in any way through any of the land code or governance, which I don't think that can legally hold up, because the land code in and of itself establishes a framework of governance by which you have to abide within the framework of. So any action outside of it which may be construed as an impediment to a member. Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah, but you also have to
maybe-
remember that a lot of this wording, like, as much as, like, this part here, 3.7, the land code shall be interpreted in a fair, large, and liberal manner. That kind of puts into perspective the fact that, like, letter of the law is not the letter of the law, and definitely not in Canada. That's a United States idea, where Canada, there is a common sense law. So, you know, to the point of common
Right.
sense.
Yeah, that makes, yeah.
And
So,
yeah.
the other part of it is that the clauses of this document are limited to this document, specifically the land code. So,
Yeah.
for instance, if chief and council have to pass a law in the future, you know, limiting like their zoning and things like that, they're allowed to do that. But like
Right.
to just go up to an individual member and say, no, you can't, you know, access your inherent treaty rights. I think that is what the spirit of that clause was.
that makes sense.
Not to say that like, you know, chief and council's hands are tied and they can't make any laws whatsoever. Like, you know, it's just, it's limited to the land code. So the purpose of it is to be able to facilitate people returning to the land, not to restrict them in returning to the land. That's what my spirit was in that.
Yeah, I am curious about who it was that was trying to contact about this, because as far as I know, the only person that really is supposed to go over this is the verifier. And as far as I know, a verifier has not been found yet or assigned. I believe the resource center will provide a list, and then somebody from that list is chosen. I'm not sure who chooses them, whether it's our group or chief and council or you, Tess. I'm not sure, but I haven't heard anything about a verifier yet.
You haven't come across that it needs to be legally reviewed? I thought that we
Yes.
had.
Yeah,
So
yes, but
that's
it's the verifier who does that, because what they need to do is they need to go in and make sure that everything works alongside with the framework agreement, but also to make sure that the wording is basically, yeah, within proper legal parameters, I guess you can call it.
So the verifier must seek out a legal assistance, then a lawyer to do that.
Well, I would imagine that they would have knowledge in that themselves.
They are
They're-
probably lawyers themselves.
Yeah, probably.
I haven't heard that, but we'll be soon to find out. My understanding of verifier was that they're an independent that looked into whether it had been fairly consulted upon with the band membership.
Consultation, yes.
Yeah.
They oversee the consultation part. They oversee the voting. They don't do the voting. They don't conduct the voting. They just watch us do it and make sure that we're doing it in the proper way and that we don't do anything illegal. They also have to make sure that they go over the land code itself and the wording and make sure that it's lines up with the framework agreement. I don't, I'll send you some information about that. Okay.
Sure. If you have time. Otherwise, I can go on the website as well and look that stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah, Cassandra was also talking about it during her meeting with us as well, specifically about the verifier and what their role is. Okay. Okay, so back to the meeting here. So we left off at the end of part 1, which is there, and we began part 2. I'm supposed to do what? Okay, Ashley's not here, but David, were you able to look into the lawmaking procedures section?
Yeah. Again, in my excitement about being involved in the land code, I think that was like the first thing that I was looking at.
Mhm.
So that would be part 2 in this document that you have there. That is really the legislation and how we go about, like, what chief and council can do, how they go about doing that, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess starting at the beginning, do you want me to go through it all, or like I can read it all out, and or we can go piece by piece and we can discuss? It's up to you.
Good question.
Because it is a little bit heavy.
Yeah. Well, we do have 2 hours here, so we should probably go one by one.
Okay, so I'll start at 7.1 in the document here.
Okay.
So this is the first part that basically says the authority of who can make laws. So council, by way of a BCR, can make laws respecting the development, conservation, protection, management, use, and possession of First Nation land, and interests and licenses in relation to First Nations land, and any matter which is necessary or ancillary to laws respecting First Nations land. This was basically copy and pasted from that the example land code that you sent me, Michelle.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now, and yeah.
So I was looking at the Haidley Tene, who are in the West Coast, and I really liked what they said in their land code, so I just basically copy and pasted it. You guys think that there's something that might be added? I don't know. I think it's pretty comprehensive there.
Agreed. Anyone else have anything to say? Comments, concerns?
So under like development, use and possession, that would be like your zoning laws, establishing like if we want a commercial zone, industrial zone, residential, etc. Or areas that will remain unzoned if somebody wants to access their traditional right to settle on the lands, but don't necessarily want to be part of like the main town. Like if we can facilitate something for those people, that would be great. I don't know. I tried to leave it as open-ended as possible so that we have as many possibilities to our membership, because not everybody's going to want to be right in town, right? Like not everybody's going to want to be beside 2 feet away from a neighbor. So this just gives chief and council all the things that they need to do that. So 7.2, any laws as enacted in 7.1 shall be for the benefit of the membership or lands as a whole, because it's important to make that distinction between the membership and the lands. Sometimes chief and council is going to have to make laws that help the land and not members, and vice versa. So again, to go back to your act as an impedance, there's probably a better way to word that, like you had mentioned, Tess. So it's not as, like you said, binding. So if we can, I don't know, if you want to highlight 7.2 totally, just so we can, I don't know, mull it around in the next couple meetings, see if there's a better way that we can come up with that.
Okay. All right, so I'll highlight in yellow.
How you doing, Pam? Are you still with us? Good? Okay, good. So 7.3, for greater clarity, any laws enacted by council by way of a BCR or others otherwise shall not in any way restrict, limit, prevent, misdirect, or otherwise impede in any manner or at any time any member who so chooses to exercise their aboriginal, inherent, treaty, or any other rights in the land, etc., etc. And that, falls into 7.2, so maybe highlight that one as well. I was just kind of going off the top of my head when I started doing all this. So.
Okay.
So now 7.4 just kind of sets up the laws and what they're authorized to do through this land code. So switch over here. So regulations in respect of zoning and land development, creation, regulation, and prohibition of interests and licenses in relation to First Nation land, environmental protections and assessment, provision of local services in relation to MCFN lands, and the imposition of fees associated with those services. So that would be things like garbage collection, or if we do some sort of municipal water or sewage or something like that, road, even like road maintenance, things like that. That could be the imposition of property taxes or something like that. Enforcement of First Nations laws, and G, provision of services for the resolution outside of the courts of disputes in relation to First Nations land. And we spoke about that in the last meeting with that dispute resolution.
Mhm. Yep.
Panel, I think we kind of settled on an interim name for that process. And what that entire panel is set out a little bit later in this document. So we just kind of put that aside for right now. So yeah, that's basically the lawmaking authority, what they're authorized to do through the land code. And then the next bit there is the procedure and the community approvals, which I, again, as part of that whole bit above, I just went through and did this. So I should think this was assigned to somebody else.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, this was just my template here. Again, this is not the be all end all, and I wasn't trying to propose that this is it, but this is just kind of like my template that I got from that example you gave me, with a little bit of addition of my own. So
Appreciate it, David. So are there any comments, concerns, or questions about 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4?
I'm just going to mention that taking minutes for this is a little tedious, so you're going to have to definitely adapt from everything I make a note of, Michelle.
No worries, Ty. You're really great at taking minutes. Probably a little too detailed, but that's okay. That always helps me in later on. Thank you.
Be sure to include emojis.
Yes, please do. Those are always fun. Okay. Okay, so aside from taking a look at these highlighted areas a little bit closer for the wording, we'll adopt those. So lawmaking procedure and community approval. Let's see. There was lawmaking powers. That was Ashley's section. Lawmaking procedures, which was David's. The publication of law codes and the land laws was for Pam. And then the enforcement of land laws was for Kara. This particular section, procedures and powers. Lawmaking procedures would have been Ashley, I believe. Unfortunately, Ashley's not here, so he won't be able to speak to that. I did add one section here after reading through it, which was a proposed law may be introduced by the chief, a counselor, a representative of the Lands and Resources Department Authority, a representative of Lands and Resources Department Authority on behalf of a member, but I also added any registered members as well, because I figured it'd probably be appropriate that if another person had an idea that they can at least present it. It doesn't have to be through somebody else. Does
okay.
anyone have any
Well,
concerns about that?
I just wanted to, the reason why I put in D was basically to, let's say, so in my vision for this land code, we would have our lawmaking would be done at the AGM every year. So if we have laws to be introduced, we present them to the community, and the community decides whether or not this is a good thing for the community. We all vote. I wanted to put part D in there as a way, as sort of like a filter, because at some of the AGMs, things have a tendency to get a little out of hand when it comes to discussion sometimes. And when we're talking about things like laws, we're talking like we can go hours and hours and hours if we listen to every member who has an idea about a law.
Mhm.
So I wanted to have the Lands and Resources Department as kind of like the filter for it. So if somebody says, hey, this is a great idea, the Lands and Resources Department authority can look at it and say, okay, no, this is already done through this, or yes, this is a good idea, let's present it, etc. So I'm not completely against E, but I'm not completely for it, if it makes sense, you know, as a matter
Yeah.
of procedure. I like the idea of it, and for sure, like, because
I
everybody
agree.
could have.
That is definitely something that I thought of as well. However, I also thought of the opposite of that, which is what if there's a member who wants to at least make a proposal and they're being refused just because, like from, just because personalities don't always
Okay,
work out that way, right?
Yeah, no, I get you.
So
'Cause that has happened in the
having
past.
at least the right to be able to do so seemed appropriate. because it's just a proposed law.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do definitely understand what you're talking about too, is the fact that it could go crazy. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you
So-
put it that does make a lot more sense.
So
You can leave that in.
I'm gonna make a note about that though, and just see if there's something that we could add in there, like, because you don't want somebody coming in with 50 different proposed laws at once. So we should have something somewhere in here that says that that could be avoided somehow, or at least mitigated.
In better terms, we
Fine.
should have the crazy member clause.
Nobody
Okay.
is crazy. But yeah, like you said, it's like one member could get up and have 400 different ideas for laws and take up 8 hours of everybody's time, and we're no closer to doing anything, right? So,
Yeah.
But I do agree with the notion that sometimes people do just get not heard because people don't want to hear them, you know?
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe just to address this right now, since we're talking about it, is there any suggestions that somebody has that we could put in place somewhere else in the land code that would help mitigate this?
I do. I have the idea that if you're able to actually, you got to realize every law, then law creating process, whether it's provincial or you get in the states, you have to go, every law goes through its own paperwork process, like an application. So preventing somebody from, they're not going to want to fill out 400 forms, right? So there should be, in the filtering process of this, there should be a screening form, which, you know, legitimizes their request. If they can fill out all the Q&As regarding that, then it can make it to the next stage. So we're looking at a filtering process, and that's just a beginning stage to mitigate it. And then that would eventually be looked at, like David was suggesting, by Lands and Resources at some level. And then it pushes forward. If it's legitimate, it's going to make its way to the AGA presentation on a yearly per annum schedule.
Yeah, that kind of brings up is maybe not bringing up proposed laws at the AGM, but making sure that they're brought up ahead of time, like a particular amount of time ahead of time. That way it can be
Exactly.
looked over ahead of time. So
Pre-screening applications.
Yeah, like obviously there would be some sort of paperwork involved, you know, people would have to supply some sort of reason for making a law. Like we can't just go make laws willy-nilly with no rhyme or reason, you know?
Yeah.
There has to be a legitimate logic behind why we would make these laws.
Yep. Okay. So
And we can establish that even a little later in this procedure, because that's what effectively this is, the procedure bringing these out.
yeah, exactly. That's just why I'm if we can come up with these ideas right now, we can make sure that they go into the proper area.
Definitely.
This is how I noted it on the minutes here. I wrote pre-screening applications provides reason and justification with respect to a per annum timeline. So within the 1 year, if you can get your thing, if you plan on filling out this application a month before the AGA, I would have no problem telling the member that you're crazy. This isn't happening within a month. Where were you 3 months ago? So we all have to respect that there are timelines and there is a process.
Mhm.
The more we adhere to the process, the more respect people will have for the process.
Yes, absolutely. So aside from pre-screening, is there any other ideas that we could use to mitigate this idea?
Again, just
I think we need to acknowledge that our elders council at some level is going to want participation in this. Now, whether it gets something that's screened at a level of a department and then moves forward. Now, I'm not sure what legitimacies that actually have in terms of like making laws, but it seems respectful to acknowledge that council at some level within all this. Whether they understand it or not, we can drop it into layman's terms as much as possible, but I think, yeah, that kind of matriarchal dynamic needs to be addressed.
Yeah, mentioned specifically, so perhaps putting them into 8.1 as a separate bullet. Like the Elders Council as a whole, or a representative of the Elders Council on behalf of the
Yeah.
Elders Council.
I think Pam's on the phone. I wanted to ask about that Lands and Resources Department authority. Is that what the group has landed on as the governing authority or body for administration of the land code?
For the moment, we haven't really discussed that wording yet. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, hold on. I have to take a call from Pam. Okay, everyone?
Yep.
Oh, hold on a second.
Microphone. I thought I fucking closed it. Why is it not closing all the way?
Okay, everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Pam was just bringing up the fact that she thinks it's a really good idea to have a basically a body of members who would make up a board that would basically become the Lands and Resources Authority, Department Authority, or whatever name that they take on, which would include such things as having like a secretary, a treasurer, a committed position for like a year, and rules. Basically, they would run it like a proper business meeting.
Yeah, I agree. That's sort of the way that governing administrative body is the one that does that. So they would sort of do the first vetting.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be that you
And,
still have chief and council see all applications from registered members for laws, proposed laws, but.
And she also wanted to remind everyone that she is the current Elders Council representative for our meeting, and she will be bringing this back to the Elders Council so that they could discuss and talk about what we're doing here and maybe come up with some suggestions or comments for us in the future.
Awesome. Yeah, that's why I was proposing those themes earlier to Ty and Michelle to parse it out, not just by part, but by the theme of having having a governing body. How does that work? And at what level? Having an enforcement framework. How do you want to see that? So that it becomes more tangible discussion points for committees or councils such as the Elders Council. We could still attempt to do that. Try to, parse it out for the Elders Council for their discussions. Like the big ticket item.
This body, the Lands Authority, Lands and Resources Authority, whatever the name we finally settle on would be like that body, right? So, and that is established through the land code itself, and that'll be actually handled in a further on section in here, just to say, this is the body, this is what they handle, this is their mandate, this is what they do.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that'll all be a little bit later in this. I didn't quite get to that part yet.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I commend you for the work you have done, Dave. It's excellent. I was really surprised to see that you had sat down and started drafting.
Oh, I'm so excited about this.
Yeah, you got as far as part 3, didn't you?
Yeah, just about the community approvals and stuff, and then just after that. So, which again is the next part of this. So I just put in, I'm in the blue there. I just slid in that representative of the Elders Council, or the Elders Council as a whole, if they want to. I think Pam might be going to write something in the chat. Oh, she's reading. What?
Okay.
Oh, no way.
Okay. All right. So I guess 8.2.
Right, so this would be when proposed laws are done. So before a proposed law can be enacted by council, so before they get the go ahead, make it law, the proposed law shall be tabled at a meeting in writing, open to the membership, to be held during the MCFN AGM, or at a special meeting that is open to the membership to be held when it's practicable. I just wanted to put that last bit in just in case we can't get to it during the AGM, because sometimes things come up and we just aren't able to do it. And if we aren't able to do it, it needs its own special meeting, because we can't, this is not something we can just, do off our cuff. So it's deposited with the chair of the Lands Authority at least 21 days before the law is to be enacted. So once it's accepted by the community, we give it to the Lands Authority, they put it in the register, and then It's posted in all offices of MCFN at least 21 days before it's to be enacted. So when it's enforceable, it's got to be up for at least 21 days so that people have more than enough time to know, like, you've been informed, this is the law now, you know.
Mhm.
So that was basically all of 8.2. 8.3 is then going on about emergency laws. So this is a very important one to me, because this is the one that could be potentially abused. So I wanted to make sure that it's ironclad. 8.3. Council may propose and enact a law at an emergency meeting of council, disregarding section 8.2, so outside of the AGM requirement, only if council is of the opinion that the law is needed to urgently protect MCFN lands and its members, or to respond to an urgent or emergent situation. Said law shall require the acknowledgement of the chair of the lands authority to be considered valid and is not valid or enforceable until that time. So basically they want to propose a law, let's say, we need a law to evacuate everybody here due to authority. The lands authority says, yeah, okay, got it, do it. So 8.4, chair of the lands authority shall, upon receipt of said law, provide immediate acknowledgement by any means of communication available. So if it's a phone call, if it's a text, if it's an email, whatever, but it should be ready and willing to provide a record of that communication so that everything's above board. We can say, yes, the lands authority knew about this and it is valid. Acknowledgement of the proposed law should not be withheld for any reason. When doing so could potentially endanger the lives or livelihoods of the MCFN membership on MCFN lands or the lands themselves. So yeah, this is basically like, if we have forest fire, flooding, whatever we need to get out of here now, and we need to make sure that we have the ability to do that legally, then chief and council has the ability to do that. 8.5.
Or like the COVID example, like Garden River, Batchewana closing the borders, the entrances to the reserves here.
Exactly.
That was most likely done under sort of an emergency measure.
Exactly. So we don't want to limit chief and council to just these AGMs to do these sort of things. So that's why that's there. Any law enacted under 8, so I'm on down to 8.5 is just the duration. I'm not stuck on 28 days. If you guys think it should be longer or shorter, let me know, but basically it should last for no more than 28 days. After 28 days, they evaluate everything. If they think it's going to go on for longer, they do it again. If they think that it's going to end, then they can talk to the lands authority and say, okay, this is the end of that particular law. Do you think 28 days is good in terms of an emergency situation, or should it be more? Should it be shorter?
Oh, I like 28 days, 4 weeks.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
could also have them subject to an annual audit of, or I don't know, annual. I don't know how often these things come up, but
yeah, we could put out, like, even part of these emergency laws could be like a standing law saying, well, we know this happens between this period and this period, so if it does, this is the case. I don't know. There's so many.
I think the next one really kind of helps explain that in a way, like what exactly is an emergency, because, you know, reasonability, right? You wouldn't enact a law for 28 days if we're flooding, if the flooding only happens for 5.
yeah, I think it's
Yeah, see, and that's why I was saying fire. So like maybe 14 days, like a shorter period might even be better.
you could just say up to 28 days.
Well, no more than 28 days sounds good.
So that's like the limit, is no more than 28, after 28, but it can be before then that it'll end. And then 8.6 just spells out your disasters. What this is to be used for, like 8.3, because like I said, I don't want 8.3 in the future. Let's say 4 chief and councils from now, somebody gets the clever idea to enact a bunch of laws under 8.3, right? We want to make sure that they can't do that and everything's above board. So this is what it would be used for. And also at the very end, so your natural disasters, industrial disasters, health and social disasters like homelessness or things like that. Technological disasters, because that's happened up here where we couldn't phone out of the community at all. So if somebody had an emergency, we couldn't even phone the Wawa hospital to get an ambulance up here. So, you know, substantial losses of your communications network or power outages, things like that. And then the last 2 points are we can enact emergency laws to help respond in other communities to their emergencies. So if we need to rapidly mobilize all of our fire equipment to get out to somewhere to help them fight a fire, we have the ability to do that. And then 8.7 just talks about how long each law should be discussed for. So we need to be talking about things for a minimum of 15 minutes to a maximum of an hour. Because if we just let it go forever, talking about a thing, we could talk about one law for 12 hours and not have anything. So if somebody brings something up, we talk about it for a minimum of 15 minutes so that we are sure that we get every angle possible, make sure it's a good thing. And then if the discussion goes more than an hour, then we have to cut it off. And then that's when we start the voting process, which would be in 8.8 here.
I like the minimum of 15 minutes. I'm not sure about the hour because it could come down to things like discussing I can't really think of anything that might take longer than an hour, but I'm sure there are some discussions that could possibly take an hour. I don't know if we should enshrine this.
Okay, you can highlight that bit. We can come back to that.
This meeting is an example that serves that an hour might not be long enough. You see how we've had to like spend just this amount of time just to go over a few things. And this is not us like putting our hand down on anything. So if we had to put the hammer down on one of these things, it could take more than an hour.
Yeah, depending on the subject, because some would only be like 15 minutes might be too long for some ideas, but an hour not long enough, and it wouldn't be fair to just cut it off like that.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back to that then. So 8.8, once we've discussed the law in front of the community, eligible voting members of the community that are in attendance of the meeting shall vote by a show of hands or a simple yay or nay, whether they accept the law. I think a show of hands is pretty easy to tell whether or not you've got a majority. I mean, if we really need to, we can count each hand if it's that close. Council shall vote by show of hands, simple yay or nay, whether they accept the law. So community says yes, council says yes, then great. If it's discovered that a member present at the meeting has cast a vote and they're not eligible voter, so they're not over 18 and not a member, it should be brought to attention of those assembled, and their vote is just simply disregarded. We won't have to redo the vote or anything like that because it doesn't really affect how people would vote at the end of the day. We just disregard their vote, and then the vote still stands. Because I can see people, you know, throwing their hands up over that, saying, "Oh, my child voted and they're not supposed to, so let's have a revote," and that'll just delay the process.
Yep, that makes sense.
We've seen that before, haven't we, David?
You want to do show of hands for members?
Well, I also think that we should be including an electronic means, because I do
That's
believe
right.
that
Me
one
too.
of the electronic means would be using One Feather.
Yeah,
For
that's what-
electronic voting.
That's what most of the voting is done for Missanabie Cree has been through One Feather. And the plans for the land code itself are to be done that way. And that I don't know if that's more formally recognized as ratification as opposed to just passing of a law. But yeah, the show of hands requires that they're there, which means that it requires that they have had knowledge of that meeting. And I just wonder if that's enough.
Well, yes, because we would be telling people that there is a meeting coming up dealing with laws, or like I said in the beginning, this would be happening at the AGM, in which case everybody will have an agenda and they'll know exactly when we're going to be talking about the laws. So if they want to have a say in the laws, then they will be at that meeting. Otherwise, sorry, but if you don't want to attend a meeting about the laws, then you have to accept what the community decides. Like,
Although
to me-
there is having an electronic means in addition,
oh yeah,
potentially.
well,
just as a
potentially.
catch-all.
yeah, yeah, okay.
Like say somebody can't go because they're sick or infirm, or they're looking after someone who's sick or infirm, so they can't be there in person, but they do want to have a say.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that could be done because my First Nation, which is located in the Yukon, they have virtual meetings as well as in-person meetings, so that like I can't travel to the Yukon just for an AGM as much as I'd love to. So what they do is they have an online setup where I can watch what's going on and listen to what's going on, and I can type in the chat comments and stuff. But also for voting, they have a special. It's not One Feather, but it works just like One Feather, where I can cast a vote through it, and it's considered legal, which is kind of cool.
Mhm.
And I know I appreciate that a lot because, yeah, my First Nation.
So what I will do then is we'll put in sorry. Let's get my blue marker on here. Revision for electronic voting or vote by proxy. Like, I'm not sure if,
Proxy, I think, is the word.
vote by proxy for those unable to attend. Put that in there so that we can kind of hammer that out.
Mhm.
Any other discussion about this one here? Like, that was, thank you for that, Tess, because that wasn't even in my head when I was doing this.
No, I'm
Yeah,
good
the
with that.
idea was that maybe during the AGM, if we're doing this lawmaking meeting, it would be possible to do it, open it to Zoom as well.
Mhm.
But I don't know how well that would work with ExploreNet up here or what the internet situation is. So I didn't really want to.
Well, hopefully by then we'll have to upgrade the internet.
That's the hope.
Mhm. So going back to all of these lawmaking procedure and community approvals, 8.1 to 8.7. Is there any comments, questions, concerns about any of this so far?
And this will be up on Google Drive all the time. So
Yep.
anybody wants to log on at any time, read it over. If you have ideas, just make sure you put it in a different font color so we know what was in it.
Yeah, and just so you know, the only people who can actually look at this right now is us, the people I've shared it to. It's attached to your email, actually. So you have to log into this through the email that I provided for the share. If
I would
anyone
say
needs help with that.
concerns. The greatest concern that I can see for this group at this point is catching Ashley, Brad up to speed and
Mhm.
possibly gaining another voting member. I had a quick discussion with Michelle today about the fact that with Carol being gone and it being hard to, gather members, we have confidence into like continue to execute this. I suggested Nolan Rainville. He's just so on par with Indigenous politics, community, the evolution of Indigenous communities. I would like to, possibly promote him for this if he's interested. I haven't had that conversation yet, but I do believe we need to catch up the people that aren't here up to speed with these discussions, because it's going to be hard to go over everything we just did. We're going to have to sum this up in 10 minutes or so by way of minutes. This recording, obviously, if they're willing to sit down and listen to it all. As well as possibly get another voting member in here. I'm not sure how you guys all feel about that.
I agree with that. Having more heads is better than less.
Definitely.
And specifically for voting members, because currently we only have 3. So,
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up the last time, get everybody here.
mhm. I know there have been some people that were reached out to that had indicated interest in joining this particular subcommittee. At least 4 people that I've reached out to, and nobody's gotten back to me about it. So I guess that's kind of, I guess, being sent to Tess. Is Tess still here?
I'm
Yeah.
still here.
Yep, she's here.
I'm
Okay.
listening. I'm listening. Yeah, we had a call out. We had to make the call out to the membership on Fairfax and on Facebook. And then we took the first 4 at the time, or 6, I think. We were asked to keep it. I wanted to open it up to everybody, and I was quickly told that that's recommended, that was not advisable to try to facilitate too large of a group. And then from there, we've had some leaving. So I'll have to bring it back to Chief and Council to see whether we should do another call out or not, and go from there.
Can I make a suggestion? Seeing as we have a community outreach worker that works with individual hubs, maybe it would be nice to have a liaison from each hub area, like try to promote it in that way. And that's something I believe Chief and Council could get behind, whether we execute.
I think we were trying to do
or
that.
not.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I can
think
ask specifically about Nolan. I don't know if Nolan expressed interest on the first EOI that went out.
And I'm thinking ideally it would be nice to have 6 voting members, 5 or 6 voting members, along with like the hub coordinators that show up and minute taking test sometimes.
Yeah, because inevitably voting, there's always, some that don't show up, and then for various reasons, our lives are busy, and it's nice to have it would be nice to have at least 3 people at the table who are voting members for the committee.
Mhm. And splitting up this work would be a lot easier too. Okay, I guess we'll just go back to this. Where do we leave off? Here, so 8.9. Did we go over this yet?
No, that's just what happens if we accept the law. Then they'll do the BCR to enact the law. They'll deposit the law with the Lands Authority, and then everything's good to go from there. Council will either defer the law for further discussion. So if, let's say, community doesn't accept the law, Chief and Council does, or Chief and Council accepts the law, but the community doesn't, then we can defer the law for further discussion at a later time or amendment. Or we can completely outright reject it and say, no, we're not going to discuss this. But that would have to be a decision made by either the community or whoever's rejecting it. Because I don't like saying, like, say somebody proposes a law and it doesn't get accepted. I don't like that being the be all end all of that discussion. So to be able to refer it back to the person, say, hey, okay, maybe the spirit is good, but it needs to be written in a better way. Was basically the whole point of this. Just to say, like, a no is not necessarily an outright no, but maybe just a not right now. So that would be, if it's an emergency law, it would be section 8.3. If it's a regular law, 8.2A, just our regular law meetings.
Okay.
Band administrator and chair of the Lands Authority. So both entities shall keep a register of the laws that have been deferred for later discussion, just so that we can keep track of it and say, hey, we were supposed to talk about this. Have we talked about it? What's the status of this? Because sometimes things fall through the cracks and you say, okay, we'll talk about this later, and it doesn't happen. So to keep a register of those laws, just to say, okay, we have it, we're going to talk about it regularly. And then 811 is keeping a copy of the law. The original copy of any law or resolution concerning First Nation land shall be signed by a quorum of council present at the meeting in which it was enacted. So everybody signs off on it to say, yep, this is how it is now. And then publication. So publication was all under Pam. That's just what this part here that I did was basically copy and paste from the Hidley 10A. So if Pam has anything extra to add or anything different from what she came up with, I'm all ears.
Mhm. Okay. Well, we're not going to be able to hear her for sure.
Oh, he's on the phone.
Yep. Hold on a second. Hey, Pam.
Sorry, I've been distracted. I've been helping my son with his homework. So.
I feel you. I finally got my kiddos back to school today, so finally some me time.
Yeah, long overdue for sure.
Okay. Mhm. Okay. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, hold on a second then. Hold on one moment.
Hey, Tess, are you still
Okay.
upside down? Or did you fix that?
Hold on.
I managed to fix it. I figured it out. I because I was on a Zoom call last night and I was upside down and I'm like, this has got to stop. And so I Googled it. There's but I can do it again if I'm ever not liking the way I look. I'll just hang upside down. You go to those little three dots. How did I do that? No, you go to you hover over your video, the little video screen at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, you see the little arrow beside stop video or start video?
Yeah.
And you go to video settings. No, that wasn't. Where was it? The heck was it? Where did it go?
The whole point of this, guys, is Tess showed up to our meeting the other day and she was upside down and she couldn't fix it.
Yeah, I did.
It was fun.
Hilarious.
Quite a few meetings like that, actually. I told people
Okay,
I was
so-
a bat. Forget where that is now. I don't know.
David, Ty, and I have been invited to an elders committee meeting so that we can discuss with them basically all the revisions we're doing. David, Ty, how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah. So
In the new year.
okay. Yeah, sure. Anytime.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. I think the three of us would be definitely. Yeah, Tess has been there.
Yeah, we've met.
Yeah, they really gave it to Tess, so it's our turn.
Yeah, it was just a long meeting, but they weren't giving it to me. Like it was just it just ended up being a long meeting. Oh,
Yep.
So sorry, if you go into settings, so I don't know if anybody wants to know how to do this. So you go into settings, if you're pulling that up, and then you go to video and you're seeing, like I'm seeing myself right now in the video, right in the very top corner that says rotate 90 degrees.
Nice.
Yeah. And I have no idea how that happened without me controlling that. It just one day went that way. So I don't know if somebody who has administrative powers in the back end did it, but that's how to fix it.
Interesting. Thank you, Pam. Is there anything that you want to say about the revisions we've done so far? Do you have anything to comment on about the what we've created so far?
Figured out how to do.
Yeah, they're good at it, aren't they? Okay.
Whole head.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay. Hello?
Just foolish.
Okay, so Pam thinks the revisions are all good so far, and she just would really like us to join the Elders Committee or Council, not committee.
Yes, that was the one. That was the one thing I did kind of get in trouble about. That was it. I think that was it. Yes, I was corrected there.
Okay. All right, so publication of laws. Oh, that's what I was supposed to ask about. Hold on. Hold on. Hey, Pam. So you were given the part for talking about the publication of laws. Were you able to get to any of that? Mhm. Mhm.
Ah, Jimmy. Thank you.
Mhm.
Occupation, you feel you're under my chin.
What's up, Bluebeard?
Yeah. Mhm. 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 Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Okay, so, so Pam hasn't had a chance to go through this particular portion of the land code, the publication of laws. However, I do see that David has added to it. And I added a few small bits here in purple. So I'll go through each one of them. 9.1. The band administrator shall keep a record at the band office of all laws enacted, whether current or repealed. 9.2. This record shall be freely accessible to any member who requests it, and it will be provided within 14 days of the request. I added this part so that they'll be able to get the actual information in a timely manner. 9.3. The complete text of any and all new laws enacted shall appear in the next Fairfax following the date of the enactment. 9.4. The complete text of any and all new laws enacted shall be posted on the website of the Missanabie Cree First Nation in a publicly accessible area of that website. And 9.5, the complete text of any and all new laws enacted shall be made into a hard copy format and freely available to any member who makes a written request, electronic or otherwise, to the band administrator. I put electronic or otherwise because it could just come in the form of an email and not just a written letter. So Pam, what do you think of those? Is there anything that I should add or change? Yeah, I can hear you.
We gotta fix her computer. Did you get a computer yet, Pam?
Oh, they haven't gone back to her yet, Tess. Okay. Awesome. All right, I'll let you go here, okay? Thanks, Pam. Okay, everyone else hear me still?
Yep.
Okay, I just did the reading from 1.9 to 1.5, 0.6. Is there any comments from anyone else? Questions, concerns, changes?
No, I like the within 14 days. I didn't think to put in a time limit that way. You know, they can't just drag their heels and
Oh, they could. They definitely could.
yeah.
Just kidding. Okay. All right. So enforceability of land laws. This was given to Carol. And I'll go through it. Just to let you know, basically all I've done was really added the Missanabie Cree First Nation name, because after reading it, it kind of was straightforward to me. So 10.1, to enforce its land code and its land laws, Missanabie Cree First Nation shall have the power to establish offenses that are punishable on summary conviction, provide fines, imprisonment, restitution, community services, and alternate means for achieving compliance, establish comprehensive enforcement procedures consistent with federal and provincial law, including inspections, searches, seizures, and compulsory sampling, testing, and the production of information, and provide for the collection of non-tax debts, fees, charges owed to Missanabie Cree First Nation using taxation collection remedies made under Missanabie Cree First Nation taxation laws if the First Nation has enacted taxation laws or bylaws under another act of parliament. 10.2, Missanabie Cree First Nation may enter into agreements with other governments or government agencies to collect any fines, debts, fees, and other penalties imposed by its land code or First Nation laws. I wasn't quite sure if I should be specific about other government or government agencies, but I figured that's pretty well generalized. It's kind of like it's so general that I don't know if it could be used in a wrong way. But
I wonder if we need to make sure that we're addressing like Anishinaabe Police Services or Aboriginal Police Services. That would be, we would think, the level of government that we would like to address things on that type of basis, not OPP and not registered mounted police.
Yeah, they would be under another government, but it would be under the ASCII government, not the Canadian government or provincial government, right? So that would be considered another government or government agency, which is kind of why I thought the generalization would be a good thing. I don't know if anyone can think of a reason why it wouldn't be a good thing. I think out of all of this is the only real question I had for anyone.
Maybe clarifying other governments with other Indigenous governments, because the way I kind of read it is like maybe MCFN could enter into some sort of agreement with Cuba or something, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking too. Yeah.
So I would say other Indigenous governments or
other Indigenous governments when possible. When you know, when available or something. That should be our go-to, is Indigenous versus colonial at some level.
But it also has to include the colonial, because say there's fines that need to be handed out and they can only be handed out by a police officer of some sort. And if there's no Indigenous police officer, then you might have to go to a provincial or federal officer. Yes? No? Like, I don't think we should take out the possibility of working with the provincial or federal government. But I'm not quite sure how to word that.
Language when Indigenous where possible, provincial, federal when necessary.
Is this section in the template, Michelle?
It is, yes. Hold on a second.
So it's being recommended that it be in this. I'm just looking at some of the other ones. They don't have it at all. This section on agreement for recovery of fines.
Agreement for recovery of fines. Name First Nation may enter into agreements with other governments or government agencies to collect any fines, debts, fees, or other penalties imposed by its land code or First Nation laws. So it's basically word for word.
Right, and so it's in the template as such. I'm just wondering, like, so I'm looking at other example land codes, and there isn't this section. So I'm just wondering.
It might be in a different section though. Like it may not be numbered the same. And
it could be deeper into the actual enforcement part of it.
Yeah, it's in the enforcement section.
Yeah, I mean, we enter into agreements right now outside of this land code, but it's not for fines, debts, fees, penalties, imposed by this land code. So imposed by its land code or First Nation laws. So that's interesting, imposed by its land code. So it's referring
The
just
First
to,
Nation.
it's referring just to Missanabie Cree's land code
Yes.
or First Nation laws. Well, if it's in the template, then it's probably fairly ironclad in terms of being non-obtrusive or like being construed any other way legally that.
Mhm. I'm going to highlight it and just make a note about our concerns about the wording, okay? Government.
Sorry, what's the concern again? Just that you could enter into agreements with Cuba, like even if it's Cuban government, if it has to do with Cubans wanting to come and live in on the reserve or start up a business on the reserve, then it would still be pertaining to its land code. So I just, what was the concern again?
Well, that would be to collect fines, debts, and fees, and other penalties specifically. So I don't think
So-
we'll be getting a hold of Cuba to come and get the
No, but
debt
so-
from.
So think about it this way. A Cuban agency wants to come to the reserve and start up a pot growing business and sell cannabis. And we say, sure, and we let them in. And they're run by a government agency. So, or they're under the government regulation of Cuba. We could, if we had to collect a fine, debt, or fee from them, go to their government. So I don't
Yeah,
see
well-
where it's limiting
Yeah.
or restricting or. Not that that's gonna happen, but
Yeah, exactly. Just, you know, you gotta look at the worst case scenario, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, then that makes sense. Okay. All right, 10.3, prosecuting offenses. For the purposes of prosecuting offenses, Missanabie Cree First Nation may retain its own prosecutor, enter into an agreement with the province to arrange for a provincial prosecutor, and make laws with respect to the appointment and authority of justices of the peace. So we can hire a lawyer, hire a provincial lawyer, or create. It kind of sounds like, yeah, creating or appointing a justice of the peace. Okay. Does anyone have anything they'd like to comment about this?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward, so.
Right, and that brings us to the end of part 2. So part 3 is all about community meetings and approvals. So this will be talking about the AGM and other lawmaking meetings. It's also going to include the information about the ratification votes that we're going to be coming to. Well, first with this land code, and then again with any kind of laws that come up. Okay, so there's essentially 6 parts to this, but the first 3 or the first 2 are just kind of like participation of members, participation of eligible members. It's just kind of a quick little blurb here. Meeting of members and community approval procedure. Community meetings of members and kind of what that's going to go into. So we're going to be talking about meeting of members and community approval procedures. Talking about what the meeting is going to look like and how it's going to go. How to notify people. It would be good for everyone to just kind of go over all of this information, but do we want to continue divvying up the work as we've been doing? Kind of. Or does anyone have a suggestion on how to, I guess, move forward with part 3?
I'd like to make the suggestion that this seems to be something that can actually be handled by individuals. If everybody does their due diligence and a read through, we should be able to participate on the topic at your next meeting versus breaking this apart, because it's somewhat generic and it's pretty much broken down into layman's terms as much as I can see as possible. So it's not doing anything with laws. It's not getting into legal jargon. It's pretty straight through, and it's terminology we as members have seen since we started being involved with our community at this level. And I'd like to make the note that that should be something, if we do decide on going that route, that should be communicated with the missing members here today.
Absolutely, yes. Like this upcoming part is actually to be a very important part of the land code. So yeah, everyone's going to need to at least read through this to get a good understanding of what this part 3 section is, community meetings and approvals. If your land code doesn't have it as part 3, then please, we're looking for the community meetings and approvals section of whatever land code you have. If anyone like needs time to go over it, talk it over or anything, Pam, we could set up just a one-on-one meeting and like kind of discuss it, talk it over and stuff. Also talking amongst members and each other is also, I encourage that. But also like people outside of this committee too, talking it over with them. That's also good. I'm going to continue suggesting that.
Yeah, I try to take every opportunity I can to bring up the things that I'm doing with the members that I do talk to, just to make sure that everybody knows that we are doing things and like kind of the veins that we're thinking on. And I know that they appreciate it. So
That's awesome.
Yes, it is. Agreed.
And then,
So-
the project plan also schedules a community update every 3 parts, right? So after
Yes.
this next part, there'll be a pause where it's summarized.
Mhm.
together like a PowerPoint or something to present via Zoom or.
Right.
Yes.
You could,
Yeah.
you could even make that a focus of an initial focus of the Elders Council, where you do that draft presentation and they're the first ones for you to sort of rehearse it with and then bring it to membership. It's an idea. You don't have to, but.
Agreed.
Oh, I like that idea.
How much do you like that idea? Do you like it about, do you like it enough to make a presentation, or shall I do that?
No, I
If
think I might be able to.
Because if you're feeling creative, by all means, I don't mind leaving that to you, because I've got a lot on my plate. I get to talk about that tomorrow, actually.
I can do
Sounds
it.
like a
I will.
Missanabie.
Okay, fine, done.
Sounds like a Missanabie project.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so I know I'm going to be going through this part with a fine-tooth comb. This is just one of the big parts of it, especially the ratification process. I wouldn't mind actually taking on the ratification section number in the draft code. It's the section 15. I guess here. Yeah, it's 15 here as well. So that leaves open the community approval, community meetings and of members. Currently, there's really only, well, there's Pam, David, Ashley, and I, who are I guess the working members. So,
You can consider me a working person because I wanted to do the enforcement or the lands piece, eh? Bring that to them.
okay,
Part 4, one I'm looking at.
well, we've been doing this by parts, Tess?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just said taking on the ratification part?
Okay, so we're looking at part 3 of land code.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sections.
Oh, I see. You're going by section for each part.
Yeah, and we've been divvying up the sections of each part.
Gotcha.
Yeah, not all the numbers exactly match up though, because
That's fine.
Yeah.
Look at the template one.
so
too.
there's participants. Is there a section here, David, that you would be interested in doing?
Well, I guess the community, the 14.1,
Community
14.2.
approvals?
Yeah, because a lot of that is kind of already established previously, but there are definitely some things that I can think of that might be. Yeah, I could do that. 14, section 14, and maybe 15. Or are you doing 15?
I was gonna look at doing 15.
So I'll take care of 14 then.
There's also 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Okay, well then I'll take 13 and 14 just to make it easy.
Okay,
And then,
13 and 14. Passed.
Yeah, you can just assign me whatever. Is it, so is this comparing it across the 3 different, like the different land codes and just being prepared to speak to it?
Yes, it's going over what's I don't know, like
The
this,
options?
yeah, everything
to
that I
speak.
put on the Google Drive is all from the draft demo code. So
Right.
basically it's going over it, adding what you feel that should be added to it or taken away from it, based on, yeah, what's
Okay.
best for Missanabie Cree. And then we just come back here and kind of do what we've been doing today, which is going
I get
over
it.
what we came up with and discussing it, and you know,
Makes sense.
so
I like that.
Section 12, meeting of members and community approval procedure. Yes,
Sure. Say that. Let me go look at the, hang on one second. Sorry.
highlight it here.
I was lost in thought for a second.
In the one on screen, it's
Go
number
back to the
13.
land code. Here it is. Okay, which part?
Meeting of members and community approval procedure.
I think you froze or I
Oh.
am muted.
Okay, hear me?
Which, yeah, now I do. Which parts?
Meeting of members and community approval procedure.
Okay,
Okay, so I put you down for that.
number 12.
Yep.
Part or section 12. Sounds good.
And 10 and 11 are kind of straightforward, so I'm just going to leave those. So Pam, I know I didn't leave you a section here, but I thought maybe you and I can go over some of this together. Because if your microphone's not working, it might, like, hopefully it'll be working by next meeting, but if not, then we're going to work with it the way we do work with it today. We'll make it work. Alrighty. So, questions, comments, or concerns about the meeting today?
Just for the minutes, what sections are you taking on, Michelle?
I'll be taking on section ratification votes. I'm doing it by title as opposed to number because not all the numbers are correct.
Yeah, the numbers are probably all over the place.
Yeah.
With that being said, David, can you just pass me your 2 section titles then, please?
I said I would be doing 13 and 14, which is meeting of members and community approval procedure.
No,
Oh, no.
no, that was Tessa's.
Yeah,
Nope.
I'm taking that one on now. You're doing 13 and 14, community
right.
meetings and approval. Although it kind of is tied together
Community meetings of members and community approval, David.
because this is the procedure and then the,
Right. So that would be 14 and 15. Yes.
Let's see. Community meeting of members. And then community approval.
Community.
they're all probably short enough that we could just do the whole part 3. I don't know how involved they are, like read it over, and if there's anything you want to add, like to any of that part, might be the other worry.
Yeah, 11 and 12, they're just like literally this one sentence blurb.
Yeah,
And then your section is all of that. Up until here.
With all due
And then-
respect, I'm gonna have to sign out. I'm sorry to interrupt everybody, but I gotta get my kiddos. It's just
Oh,
it's
yeah.
rainy and icy. I gotta leave at least 10 minutes ahead of time today.
Great.
Sure.
I will send you the minutes up to this moment. As soon as I get back, I'm actually just gonna leave right now. I realized what time it was.
Thank you
Excuse me,
so much,
everybody.
Ty.
I love you all. You're
Thanks,
welcome,
Ty.
guys. Love you
Thanks,
all.
Ty.
Love you too,
talk to
Ty.
you later.
All right.
I think we had a really good meeting today. They covered a lot of ground and there's lots of good edits in there. I'm glad Tess brought up a lot of good points. That I didn't
Thanks,
think
Dave.
about,
Good work
so-
to you too. Good work, Michelle.
Thank you. How does everyone feel about this process so far? Do you think this is working out?
Definitely.
All right. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll be able to
What is
get
that? What is that in your hand there, David?
That's the cat hat.
Did
I
you
saw
make
that.
that?
That's awesome.
Or does the
Yeah.
cat wear that?
Well, okay, so this was supposed to be flat. I was trying to do like a blanket or a granny square, which lays flat. It's nice and fabricy, but as I was doing it, it started to do a tube. So I put a brim on it and then put it on my cat.
That was an awesome picture.
That
Yeah.
is cute.
Yeah, I just started to learn to crochet. I don't know how this happened, but it happened. So I'm going to make the best of it.
That's
Thanks.
great. I'd love
I
to
would
be able to
love a
crochet.
cat like that. I would love a cat hat for my dog. It's a little bit bigger.
He would wear it too.
He
He would.
would.
It's so cute.
He'd hate me for it though.
Yeah, dirty looks.
Okay, should stop the recording here.
She's calling you again, Michelle.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna bug out.